Thank you so much. I want to start with a question for you guys. I don't want you to answer out loud, but I want you to think about your answers in your head. On a scale of 1 to 10, who here aspires to be a 5? Okay, nobody. We're off to a good start, guys. We're off to a good. Nobody aspires to be a 5. Think about why. Because 5 is average. 5 is meh. And nobody aspires to be meh. Nobody sets out with a goal of being average. But it's just so easy for our work to wind up average today. In this industry, I was talking to some of you before I got up here, there's a lot of disruption, a lot of innovation happening in the West. There's a lot of stuff happening out there. And it's either threatening our businesses or pushing us ahead. So how can we push back or keep up? Well, let's say we're going to win on customer service. A lot of you are talking about the human elements that you provide to your customers and clients. Well, if we're going to win on customer service, what do we do? How do we update or improve ours? Well, if we wanted to learn, we can go to YouTube and in under a second pull up hundreds of thousands of videos telling us exactly what we need to do. In seconds. This is the world we live in. So I picked out one of these videos. It's the number 3 ranked video on the search results. It's got over 160,000 views. And I thought, great, let's dig in. How, oh video, oh wise customer support guru, can we possibly keep up with or beat Silicon Valley tech companies that are flush with capital and talent? Let's see what they have to tell us. Number 1, start with a smile. That'll show them. I think every smile is worth like $1 million in venture capital funding, something like that. Yeah. All right, whatever. Give them the benefit of the doubt. Let's see what else this wise guru has to offer. Be civil and respectful. Sorry, guys. We have to stop killing all those kittens in the office. I know how much you look forward to our Friday all hands, but we got to stop doing that. So be civil and respectful. That's how we beat other companies. That's how we stay ahead in our own. What else we got? Be reliable. Just be reliable. How's next Tuesday? I don't want to start yet, but maybe next Tuesday we can just start. Just be reliable. Or my personal favorite advice for how to improve your client services is to look for ways to get to yes. Oh my God, I was doing it all wrong all these years. I was looking for no. Thank God I found this video. We live in this era where there's endless advice for how to do stuff. Some of it is big, like how to overhaul your entire client services arm. Some of it's small. It doesn't get any easier to navigate this world of information when it's about a channel or a tactic. Like let's say Twitter. We've been reading about social media and hearing about it. We're finally going to open up a Twitter account and start to tweet. Well, when should we send those tweets? Does anybody know? I didn't know the answer to that, so I Googled it, and in under a second again, I got 29.5 million results. And they all gave me a different best time to tweet. If you average out some of the results at the top, by the way, you get something like 12:30 local time. So apparently 12:30 local time is the best time for a business to tweet. But maybe it's not time for our companies to tweet yet. No. It's time for our companies to blog. Well, we're in luck, because there are very innovative thinkers out there that have created apps known as blog title generators. You punch in a bunch of keywords, maybe your website, and it spits out an endless list of article ideas that you should write. It's like our brains are broken. This guy even markets the product that way. There are dozens of these things out there. There are even blog posts about blog post generators. So I wrote a blog post about blog posts that write about blog post generators. Yeah, take that, internet. One guy read it. And then he asked me if I had any good ideas for his blog. So he's learned nothing. Now, we laugh at that guy, but we're not too different from that guy. See, like that guy, we live in an era full of advice for how to do our work. Endless amounts of conventional thinking surrounds us, telling us exactly what to do, and we can access it in an instant. And so can everyone else. And if there's one thing I know, it's that telling a group of people in business that the best time to tweet is 12:30 now means that is no longer the best time to tweet. The point is, no matter what sector we work in, no matter how junior or senior we are, no matter where we work and live, we all face the same big problem in business today. It has never been easier to be average. If we don't have an idea or an answer, we can find and follow everyone else's. And so can everyone else. And so too much of our work copies. It blends in, or it fades away in the minds of our prospects. So while it's never been easier to be average, it's never been harder or more imperative that we aspire to be exceptional. When you're exceptional, you stand out instead of blend in. You get bigger results with fewer resources. But now what? We just said that all that stuff out there can only get us to average. All the gurus, all the conventional thinking, all the wisdom in the world only gets us to average. That's all commodity stuff now. That's all table stakes. So what can we use to go from average to exceptional? What can we rely on to get the rest of the way there? Our intuition. We have to start trusting our own intuition. But trusting your intuition sounds like a leap. Because what do we think about when we hear that phrase, intuition? What is this idea of intuition? Well, if we go back to Albert Einstein, not a guy you associate with fluffy ideals, that guy said that intuition is our most sacred gift, and the rational mind was a servant of that gift. For Einstein, intuition was a feeling for the order lying behind the appearance of something. Okay, so intuition is a feeling? I have results. I have a business to build. If we move to more modern times, you have thinkers like author Malcolm Gladwell in the book Blink. He talks about intuition in different terms. He talks about snap judgments or rapid cognition. And he doesn't tell us how to use those snap judgments. No, he says that some are good and some are bad. And the important thing is that we take them seriously. Well, if you move into actual research psychology, you have contemporaries named Gary Klein and Gerd Gigerenzer from Germany. I mess up that name every single time, Gerd Gigerenzer. They have differing but complementary views of intuition. Gary Klein says that it's your subconscious thought process that pulls from your experience of the world to deliver an answer almost instantly. Klein focuses more on the pathway to the answer. He says intuition is about weeding out unimportant information and understanding right away what matters and what does not on your way to an answer. Regardless of how you slice intuition and understand it, it is not something that we can hold firmly in our hands and wield proactively like a tool. So why are we going to use this instead of all that conventional thinking out there that sounds so tempting, that feels so practical? Intuition feels like squishy and hard to hold firmly. And that's a shame, because we aspire to be on the other side. Nobody aspires to be average. We're always like, look, it'd be so great if we could be over there. There's like cash just lying around. They got puppies and sunshine all around. It would be so great if we could start doing better work, in theory. But in reality, we don't see that anymore. In reality, when we go back to business, it's business as usual. And all we see when we try to do something better is that. And we're like, yeah, I don't know. There's like rocks and snakes, and have we considered what we're going to do about the bear trap? Is there a case study about encountering laser beams in our work? You know what? We've been doing it this way for years. I think I'm good right here. Yeah, thank you very much. It feels like such a leap to do anything better than we've done before, to trust that intuition and think for ourselves. And that's a shame. Because intuition comes from a very simple word. If you distill it down to its essence, it's the Latin root intuere. Intuere means knowledge from within. That's not so fluffy. That's not so big. Knowledge from within. So intuition, then, should be equally simple and incredibly powerful. It's the ability to find knowledge from within. In an era overrun with experts, it's the process of thinking for yourself. And so if it feels like a leap to do something better, if it feels like this giant risky jump we have to make to trust our intuition, how do we make it? How do we cross this chasm? We build a bridge. We ask ourselves a series of 6 fundamental questions. 6 questions to start trusting our intuition and pulling out our answers from within. Here's the deal. This is where we spend most of our time at work, doing repeat stuff, commodity stuff, stuff that competitors can and do copy without much effort at all, stuff we've been doing for years without stopping to ask why or if we should keep going. But the biggest opportunity facing our businesses today is to spend more time trying to break from that, trying to get across. If we really don't aspire to be average, to be that 5, we have got to stop doing average work. We have got to stop obsessing over everybody's answers for us and start asking ourselves the right questions. Mike Brown was a guy who at one point in his life was obsessed with everybody else's answers. He was working in accounting in New York State, and he was incredibly unhappy. And so one day he decided to quit. And in his mind, his dream was to open a coffee shop. So that's what he did. He quit his steady job, and he opened a coffee shop, Saratoga Coffee Traders, in Saratoga Springs, New York. Now, there was just one problem with our friend Mike's plan to overhaul his career and start a coffee business. Mike Brown had no clue how to run a coffee business. But he thought to himself, you know what, worst case scenario, if everything is going poorly and everything is getting destroyed in front of me, I can sell my car, I can sell my house, I can move back in with my mom if I need to. A few months into running his business, that is exactly what happened to Mike. He sold his car, he sold his home, and as he's walking his stuff back into his mom's apartment, he's like, you know what, I better talk to an expert who knows a thing or two about coffee. And the experts he talked to found all sorts of weird issues with his business. For example, in this one location, he was selling 25 different variations of coffee, slightly different roasts of the same bean, 25 different roasts. And get this, 200 types of candy. It's a coffee shop, 200 types of candy. He could not say no to any one request or idea. But among all the issues that these experts found, there was one that trumped them all, one mortal sin that he was committing at this business. Mike Brown was roasting the wrong type of coffee bean. See, generally speaking, there are two common types of coffee. There's something called Arabica and Robusta. Now, Arabica coffee makes coffee that looks like this. And it's served in places that look like that, to people who look something like this guy. By the way, you have two choices. You go all glove or no glove. There's no halfway. But regardless, Arabica makes artisanal, delicious coffee. On the other hand, Robusta, yeah, not so much. It's like that grainy, gritty, gross, like instant coffee you find in a lot of hotel rooms, for example. And so all these experts told Mike, under no circumstances can you continue to roast Robusta beans. See, in their minds, there was a right and a wrong bean to roast, and Mike was definitely roasting the wrong one. Stop roasting Robusta coffee beans. One day, a customer, one of his few, came into the shop, a truck driver, and he said, "What's the strongest cup of coffee you can make me? I'll have that." And Mike did his best, and he sent the guy on his way. And then he thought, you know, I've heard that request several times before. And it's always from the same type of person, a truck driver, a construction worker, an entrepreneur, hard-charging, hard-working individuals. And Mike thought, well, I got plenty of time on my hands. Why don't I try to surprise that group of people? I'll create the world's strongest coffee. And he tinkered, and he tested, and he cared deeply about those customers. And after about 1 month of testing, he did indeed create one of the most potent blends of coffee known to man. And he named it Death Wish Coffee. Today, Death Wish is thriving as an e-commerce business. They sell millions of this stuff globally every year. He went from failing in one location to selling this stuff all over the planet. He has over 500,000 fans and followers on social media. They adore the brand, and they see themselves in the company. I also put coffee in my coffee. You should try it if you haven't. It's great. Last year, Mike used the passion from all these fans to win a contest run by the company Intuit. 15,000 small businesses entered this contest, and the grand prize, a free Super Bowl ad on TV. And of those 15,000, Death Wish won. And this is what they decided to run the day of the big game.
The day of reckoning is upon us! My brothers, what is life, if not to die a glorious death? Fear not, for tonight we drink in the halls of Valhalla! Roar! Awaken and welcome death!
Death Wish Coffee, fiercely caffeinated.
Unbelievable. So great. And Mike and Death Wish did all of that stuff by roasting Robusta coffee beans. What? That's not supposed to happen. Every expert said under no circumstances should you continue to roast this terrible beans. That was the conventional thinking. Mike didn't listen to the conventional thinking. He trusted his intuition and got exceptional results in the end. Why? Well, for starters, he began this journey with an aspiration. He said, I'll create the world's strongest coffee. He threw a sort of anchor to the other side of that leap, and it planted firmly in the ground, and it gave him a little context, a filter through which he could make sense of all those experts out there. And the experts were correct when they told Mike to trim his product line, because he's going to create the world's strongest coffee. That adds up. But what didn't make sense was for him to stop roasting Robusta. In fact, he continued to roast it and look for better and cheaper sources, because when roasted, Robusta beans yield a higher caffeine content than the other stuff. So sure, on average, if you build a coffee business, roast Arabica beans. But Mike's not trying to build an average company. Mike's trying to do something exceptional. Mike's trying to be the exception. His brand is also an exception in the coffee landscape. Take a look at that. These are local cafes near my old house in Boston and national chains. And they all have something in common, don't they? They're colorful, they're artisanal, they're welcoming and warm, they're family friendly. Is Death Wish? No. It's aggressive. It's different, not better than everything else. And it's not different for difference sake. It's different because Mike is focused on his specific context instead of the average advice. Because when we rethink all that convention out there, using our own context, we can stop reacting to the market and start proactively shaping it. That's why Mike has such passionate customers, and his brand looks so incredibly different. So ask yourself, in a world full of their best practices, what are the right practices for us? What is our Robusta coffee bean? Another thing that Mike did so incredibly well was respond to this question correctly. Yes, he served this person a stronger cup of coffee and sent them on his way. But then he thought, why? Why does that person want a stronger cup of coffee? And that customer may have answered Mike's question by saying, well, because I need more caffeine than the average cup. And Mike's like, oh, great, okay, you need more caffeine. That's what you want, more caffeine. Why? Well, because I need more energy during my day. I need a ton of energy for the work that I do. Oh, okay, I get it. You're not after a stronger cup of coffee. You're not after more caffeine. You want more energy in your day. Got it. Why? Why? What's all the questions, man? It's coffee. Why? Because I'm a truck driver, okay? I wake up at 3 in the morning every day. Doesn't matter, rain or shine, I'm driving thousands of miles away from my family to support that family through terrain you wouldn't believe. It doesn't matter if I'm sick or tired or done with this job. You know why? Why do I need more energy? Why do I need stronger cups of coffee? Because I work myself practically to death, okay? Is that what you wanted to hear? And Mike probably said something like, yeah. That's exactly what I wanted to hear, because that's what you want to buy. So that is what I will sell. You're not after a stronger cup of coffee if you're buying from Death Wish. No, you're not after more caffeine or more energy. You're after the ability to work yourself to death. So that's what Mike sells. Mike wasn't making this decision. That's what experts wanted him to focus on. No, Mike started by making this one. And because he focused more on what his customers were actually after, his customers focused way more on him. They helped him win that contest. They post all over social media whenever they get a shipment. By the way, that's an Instagram photo you're seeing with the gentleman in the glasses. Is that guy a millennial? No? Okay, wasn't sure. There are so many people who love this brand. There are even people in the world who get tattoos of the logo on their legs. For example. No, totally kidding, no. Can you imagine? Absolutely not. I would no longer be married. No. But people do that. And Mike gives them like discounts for life. And those passionate fans got him that ad and all the press and the millions in sales and turned his business around, all because Mike asked that simple little question. Every book, speaker, and podcast says we should ask this question, and we never do. Why? Why are you behaving a certain way, customer? Why are you struggling with that? What are you really after? When we pay more attention to the customer than the latest industry trends, that customer has a way of spending more time and energy and focus on us. So ask yourself, why do we spend more time learning about business than about our customers? What is our customer's death wish? Not an actual death wish, by the way. That's a clarification for the kids at home. Not an actual death wish. You should not be asking your customers what a death wish is for them. What is an insight that you can get akin to, you get it, it's fine, you get it. The other thing that Mike did so well, it's going to be a long day, buckle up. The other thing that Mike did so well was he started with a test. This is the first bag that he created. And that test came with a set of constraints. He was going to create one new product, one new roast, with more caffeine. It was going to be sold to one type of customer, that hard-charging individual, selling at a rate of 1 bag a week sometime this year. Most of us would try to ignore or get rid of constraints. Mike embraced them. All he wanted was to sell one product. That's it. Not as final success, but as a signal that he was on the right path. He was looking for a small number of people reacting in a big way to his work. So often we chase the big top-line numbers, but there's a lot of signal in a small number of people reacting passionately to what we do. Once Mike found that, he knew he was on the right path, and he leaned in. And now he sells more products to more people than ever before. Because when we make the process the point instead of the end results, we get better end results. When Mike Brown started his business, he was obsessed with getting those final numbers, sales, leads. When he switched to learning, when he switched to testing, how does one do that? He got better end results. And we live in this era of experts, online and off, telling you, here is how to get end results. Just follow this simple secret, and you'll get those end results. So ask yourself, do we follow the guru's answers, or do we test our own assumptions and draw our own conclusions? Are we looking for our answers enough from within? The first person who ever asked me this question was a guy by the name of Jack Shred. He was my high school English teacher in Connecticut. I've never met another human that can make you feel the way this guy could. Jack Shred was a bit of a literature nerd. He was an English teacher after all. And he had all these old copies of books. And my favorite was The Great Gatsby. I remember one day, he took out this really tattered copy that he had, and he decided to read us an excerpt from the end. I don't know if you've read The Great Gatsby anytime recently. I haven't, to be honest. But the ending talks about how to overcome disillusionment. You get very disillusioned with your lot in life or your work. And Shred held this book way in the future. And he balanced it with his glasses and kind of poked him up his face. And the moment felt grander, despite him doing that. We were hooked. And he said to us, look, tomorrow we will run faster, stretch our arms farther. And one fine morning, and then he stopped. And he looked at us. And he's like, this book is about what you're going to face. When you leave school and head into the workforce, you will be met with all kinds of experts. You will be met with all kinds of frustration trying to build a great life for yourself. Disillusionment abounds. And he said, it's tempting to look for one simple secret, one final answer to get over that, to do something better. But the key, he said, is to embrace your body of work, is to build a body of work over time. In other words, he was telling us if we wanted to do something better than the average, we couldn't even view this as a leap. It's not one final motion. There's no one simple secret or hack or one product. It's a process. It's a process of asking ourselves questions when it's so tempting to find someone else's answer. And the first question you have to ask yourself is, what is my aspiration? Because the first thing you do when you build a bridge is you throw an anchor to the other side. And it plants firmly in the ground, and it gives you a sort of guidepost. What is my aspirational anchor for my work? One of my favorite words in the English language is lugubrious. I don't even care about the definition. I just like the way it sounds, lugubrious. But if I asked you guys to look up a definition, what would you do? Maybe pull out an app you have on your phone or Google it and the answer appears right at the top. But would anybody go home? Hold on, Jay, I can find this for you. You're going to walk up to a bookshelf, you're going to find a dusty old book, pull it out, pore over thousands of pages, and find the answer? No, no one's going to do that. We don't think about dictionaries, we don't use them, and we certainly don't have brand loyalty to dictionaries. So how does it sound if I said that your job is now to make the dictionary cool? I think it sounds pretty lugubrious, to be honest. But that's not at all how Lisa Schneider feels. Lisa is the Chief Digital Officer at Merriam-Webster's Dictionary, and she loves her work. She says every day she goes to the office laughing and learning. But it wasn't always that way. When she started, they were doing something on repeat. They were following the conventional thinking of what you should do on social media. For example, on Twitter, they had auto-scheduled all this stuff to post. In the morning, they would post a word of the day. At night, a quiz testing your knowledge of words, over and over and over again. Lisa appeared on my podcast, and she actually criticized her team's work. She called this stuff bland, predictable, and staid. And something wasn't adding up for Lisa. See, while this stuff was happening externally, internally, there was a big, happy, thriving team. Sarcastic and witty and fun and smart. They weren't sharing internally all this boring stuff. No, internally they were sharing stuff like this. The past, present, and future walked into a bar. It was tense. Or this one. Did you hear about the kidnapping at school? Don't worry, everything's fine. He woke up. Let it arrive. Let it arrive. Okay, there it is. You got it. You got it. It's still the morning. And Lisa said, enough is enough. This is who we are. Not the stuff going on externally. She said to her team, let's show the world how fun and relevant we really are. That is a great aspirational anchor. What most executives in her shoes would do is they'd start building a bridge to nowhere. They'd say, okay, we're going to fix a channel. Let's make it Twitter. What are we going to do on Twitter? We're going to go viral, team, okay? Let's grow our followers. But Lisa threw that anchor to the other side, and it planted firmly in the ground. And she said, let's, us together, show the world how fun and relevant we really are as a team. And it rallied people together. And their first opportunity to do that came as Memorial Day weekend last year approached. Internally, the team was chatting about something very important if you're going to celebrate Memorial Day correctly. This is key. I want you all to celebrate Memorial Day correctly. This team was discussing whether or not the hot dog is a sandwich. Very crucial. But Lisa's like, this is hilarious. We're all taking stances internally, debating each other. Let's put this out into the world. They wrote a blog post, and they posted it on the Friday before the weekend, saying this: have a great Memorial Day weekend. The hot dog is a sandwich. And the internet lost its mind. Their followers were like, oh, how could you? I trusted you. Oh my goodness, you've gone way too far with this. And then there's this person pouring out her soul on social media. And yea, for the hot dog is not a sandwich. For the meat, 'tis exposed to the heavens and not blanketed by bread. This is my decree. They took a stance, and their followers took a stance right back. Best of all, this company got media coverage from that tweet. This is my favorite headline that was published. Merriam-Webster discredits itself by declaring hot dog as a sandwich. And they were like, this is great. No one has ever reacted to our company like this before. Where else can we put this feeling? Let's not just post word of the day. Let's do something with character and personality. Emoji threads. Let's use emojis to describe the definitions of the words instead of just tell you the definitions of the words. They became sarcastic and bombastic and fun, and they trumped every troll that came out of the woodwork to critique them. And today they even troll Trump. They troll the president of the United States. They correct all of his spelling, and then he deletes the tweets. It's the dictionary. And the world took notice, and their audience exploded. They have over 526,000 followers as of today. They grew their social media impressions 6,000% and their press coverage 7,000%. Because who is writing about a dictionary in the press? Well, turns out everybody. BuzzFeed, Mashable, College Humor, Vice, Vox, NBC, the New York Times, the Washington Post, Vogue. Vogue, you guys. Vogue is writing about the dictionary. The dictionary is literally in vogue. Lisa set out with her team to show the world how fun and relevant they can really be. And to her, I say, Lisa, mission accomplished, my friend. They're in vogue. And it's all because of that simple aspiration. So what is an aspiration, and how do we come up with ours? Well, an aspiration is a combination of two things: your intent for the future and some hunger, some dissatisfaction you have for the present. Every team, every executive has some kind of intent for the future. For Lisa, it was simple. We have to be part of the conversation. We're the dictionary. We need to be part of the conversation in a way we haven't in a long, long time. But add a little hunger, and you get this great aspiration. Her hunger was the realization that the voice they were using was totally bland. Nobody cared about the dictionary. It was this dusty, old, stodgy company. And that aspiration popped out at the end because they combined intent with hunger. You see, aspirational anchors have this way of creating a unique context for our work in the face of all this advice for us. It's a sort of filter that we set up to make sense of it all. And some things get stuck and some things make it through. If that's your aspiration, if you're Lisa, then that bland, boring, predictable stuff gets stuck. But what makes it through is emoji threads. What makes it through is a voice that's wonderful. What makes it through is trolling a president. Aspirational anchors help us build another piece of that bridge. They help us answer the question, why us? Everybody has access to the same information and tools. Nobody has access to us. You are your company's unfair advantage. And when you have an aspiration, that pulls it out of you because aspirations are personal. Look at the words, let's, us, together, show the world how fun and relevant we really are. Not our peers, not somebody in our industry, us, the people. Aspirations give us cause, they give us the confidence, they give us a reason to use who we are in our work. On my show, Lisa said this wasn't manufactured, this is just who we are. So if you want to differentiate, don't audit your services, don't audit your budget, don't audit the numbers, audit your team. What is your aspirational anchor? And once you have that sense of where you're going to go and how you're going to break from all that convention, it's time to take that first step out over the edge, to find some firm footing, to start building that bridge across with the next question. What is my first principle insight? What is something fundamental I know to be true about my customer's reality that I can address, I can stand on with confidence? Kathy DeMeza here had a great first principle insight that transformed her work. Kathy is a conservationist, and she works for rare.org, which is a global company helping in different pockets of the world where there's environmental issues. Kathy is based in the Philippines. Specifically, she was working in a town of Tinimbak, very small fishing village on the northern coast. Now, Tinimbak, like a lot of places around the Philippines, relies very heavily on small fishermen, mom and pop, fishing just offshore. It's so important to the country, not only the family, but the economy, that 91% of all the fish that's caught in the Philippines stays in the country. Unfortunately, Kathy was sent there to help reverse a troubling trend. Overfishing. Overfishing was hitting Tinimbak and that region. In the 1960s, the average catch was 22 pounds. But today, thanks to overfishing, that had dwindled to just 4. People were using poisons and dynamites and all sorts of new technology, and the fish population couldn't keep up. The demand was greater than the supply. So the area was becoming incredibly impoverished, and worse, they couldn't unite to decide to change. And so what the average conservationist does in Kathy's shoes is they rely on a tried and true trend, a concept from the economic world known as Homo economicus, the rational human. This says that people are rational creatures. They're logical. They will make decisions based on the right incentives or the right punishments. So if you're a conservationist, go right to the government, write a big long case of why you need to pass legislation to change behavior. And Kathy thought, that's no way to change behavior around these people, because I've lived and worked around them. They're not logical. They're not rational and cold and calculating. They're warm. They're energetic. They love their home and their craft and their families. In other words, people are social and emotional. That is a great first principle insight from Kathy and rare.org. Instead of going to the government, Kathy decided to launch what's known as a pride campaign as a result. Now, pride campaigns are something Rare has been doing for a couple decades. It all started with a guy by the name of Paul Butler, the parrot man of the Caribbean. To reach such heights in my career that I get a nickname like the parrot man of the Caribbean. Paul was on the island of St. Lucia trying to save this bird. Now, this bird only exists on that island, and when he was there was about 75 left in the wild. People were killing them off like they're common pigeons. And so he tried Homo economicus. He wrote a big essay to the government. He went before the local councils to try to get them to pass legislation, and nothing changed. But then he noticed that everybody in St. Lucia was celebrating their recent independence as a country. And he thought, if I could link this bird to that pride, maybe things can change. So rather than try to instruct people or pass laws, he created a little mascot to represent that pride, Jocko the parrot. And he went to local classrooms, and he sang songs, and he created content and handed out flyers and T-shirts, all around how wonderful it was to live where they lived, and the history of the island, and how the bird and nature was linked to that. And the community rallied, and they made the right decisions to stop killing off this bird, and then they passed legislations to make it law. Today, the population is exploding again. So back in the Philippines, Kathy started with a similar idea. She started with a slogan. This is ours. This land, this craft, this is our home. Our families live here. This is ours. And she created a mascot, Agatan, the red grouper. It's the most noble of all the groupers. It's the red grouper. And Agatan was seen in human form or plush form going into classrooms and singing songs. They created YouTube videos that were meant to talk about the abundance of the sea and how great it would be when that returned, because this is ours. This is our home. And people responded. Today, everything is getting better for Tinenbach. 60% of fishermen there are reporting larger daily catches. And all around the Philippines, local governments are commanding Rare to come help them. They're in demand more than ever before as a business. Globally, you can find Rare and Pride campaigns reaching 56 different regions around the planet, with Pride campaigns popping up everywhere. All because of that little, simple insight, that first principle insight that Kathy reached when no one else would pay attention. Because first principle insights are those basic but often hard to reach truths about our audience. It's that death wish insight that they get. And they help us understand the customer's reality. So for Kathy, it was pretty simple. They're not rational, they're not logical, they're not going to respond to Homo economicus. They're social, emotional creatures. They are proud of their homes. And that was what she needed. That insight is the starting block to get the action she so wanted. Because pride creates purpose, and purpose inspires action. Instead of jumping right to the action, the sale, the lead, the meeting, why would they take that meeting? Why would they buy from you? What is your first principle insights? First principle insights also help us draw more original conclusions than our competitors or our past selves. They make creativity and innovation logical instead of lofty. Because you could look at what Kathy's doing, especially if you're a conservationist, and think what she did was innovative. But she doesn't see it that way. All she's saying is, no, look, this is what everybody else sees. I just see the full picture. I'm starting in a better place, a more fundamental first principle place, and I'm taking the logical path there. That's all Kathy did. First principle insights also help us build another step on that bridge. Who are my true believers? Who are our passionate fans? Who's reacting positively in a strong way? Even if it's a small number of people, that is signal that we're on the right path. Who are my true believers? If we follow passion instead of big passive numbers, we can get to those big numbers in the end. Those true believers tell us which way to go, because we're addressing that fundamental need, that first principle insight. Today, Rare is the only ones that do what they do because they have that great insight. They recently announced at the beginning of this year a $20 million fund to help local fishing villages in Southeast Asia. It is the first and only fund in existence right now. So don't compete by trying to be better. Win by being the only. Win by answering that simple question. What is my first principle insight? And once you have that insight, once you're balancing out over the edge towards exceptional, you can't just jump across. You have to answer the next question on that bridge. You have to test it. What are my constraints? Camille Ricketts here had a wonderful, if crippling at first, set of constraints. But once she embraced them, everything in her work got better. Camille was recently hired to run content at First Round Capital in Silicon Valley. Now, First Round Capital, for a little context, is one of the best-known brands in venture capital. They've invested millions and millions of dollars into early-stage companies that blew up in the future, companies like Uber and Blue Apron and Square and On Deck and dozens more. And when Camille started, the role was simple but difficult to execute: improve our customer experience. In this case, customers are founders of tech startups. Now, that seems simple enough. Let's serve these people that we want to buy from us, in this case, get an investment from us, better. And her idea was to launch a blog. Again, simple enough. Just one problem. If you look at the VC blogging landscape, it's incredibly saturated. So much so that this is a periodic table of venture capital blogs that one website created to help you navigate how many there are. 89 blogs are listed in this graphic, and dozens more didn't make the cut. So to cut through that clutter, Camille and First Round concocted a grand aspiration. They said, we'll create the Harvard Business Review of startups. Now, what the average individual does when you hear this big creative goal placed before you is you look for the wide open creative field, total creative freedom. You say, I need more budget. I need more budget than ever before. We're going to get top-down approval for all these big new things. We're going to build this. We're going to put it on every social network known to man. We're going to write it on the sky. But that is not what Camille did. Camille didn't look for the creative field. She didn't look for the wide open field. She put herself in a box. She embraced her constraints. She said, look, the reality is we love that creative freedom. I don't have that to work with right now. Here's what I have to work with. I have to create a blog. I have to do it this month. I have 0 writers and 0 budget. And oh, by the way, it's a really crowded space. She embraced those constraints. And her insight was from attending all these events with entrepreneurs. She noticed, just by watching the people that she wanted to serve, that the biggest names at startup events had the fewest questions after they were done speaking. But the most popular Q&A sessions came not from the big celebrities in tech, but from founders no one had heard of, founders starting companies right now. And she realized, oh, founders want to learn from other founders, operators helping other operators, not the celebrity investor, not the celebrity journalist. Founders helping other founders. That's what this audience wants. So let's provide that, because no VC was doing that at the time. And she had no budget, she had no writers, so all she did was transcribe some of the more popular speeches of those people using the signal in the room. And she posted them online. Here's what she posted. Joe Gebbia, the co-founder of Airbnb, had this great speech, and she just transcribed it. And all she was looking for was a small number of people reacting in a big way, and she got it. A bunch of people came out of the woodwork saying, I love what you're doing at First Round. I've never seen the word love in association with a venture capital firm quite like with First Round. And she thought, great, I have signal of success. I will lean in. I will start doing proactive outreach to people to write on our blog or that we can interview in original fashion, not transcriptions. She started expanding her constraints. Today, if you get an investment from First Round, they have actual community groups they've built off of that insight. That's one little edge of the box they've pushed further out. Community groups you can tap into. They actually hire engineers to build technology to help them out. They keep looking for new ways to expand constraints because they embrace their original ones. And today they have indeed ascended to that status of HBR for startups. They're read by over 300,000 people a month, and they have a subscription list, an email list, doing wonders for their business, over 120,000 strong. They keep expanding their constraints. Now, what the world sees is a great big brand, and we think we can't be that. But they didn't start as that either. What the world sees is what happens when you embrace your constraints. And what's happening today is wildly creative, wildly viral marketing. For example, their annual holiday video. Let's take a taste of their annual holiday video.
Uh-oh, guess what day it is? Guess what day it is? Huh? Guess what today is?
It's holiday.
We worked, we dreamed, we planned, we schemed, we jumped, never asking why. Fighting every day, never walk away. Passion always haunts you. Hang on by a thread, tear your heart to shreds, waiting for the breakthrough. We are gonna change the world. What unicorns say.
Okay, that's enough. That's enough of that. That's enough of that torture. By the way, this man's name is Howard Morgan. He's in his late 70s. He's a successful millionaire investor. And this is him dressed up as Miley Cyrus, topless, in a music video. So the next time someone at your business says, well, we can't be more creative like all those tech companies, we don't have the right people on staff, we don't have the millennials that we need, shove Howard Morgan in that person's face. He doesn't need to be doing this junk. Constraints have this way of improving creativity. You get to the big things that everyone else admires if you start by embracing those constraints instead of using them as a crutch or an excuse. Every study shows that constraints actually yield more ideas and better ideas if you implement them. When you set up a bunch of constraints on the board and then brainstorm around that, you get more ideas and they're more effective at the same time. But we think we need total creative freedom. We don't. Constraints also have this way of forcing us to prioritize our reality. We get this disassociation from the big examples. I'm not Mike Brown. I'm not a consumer play. I'm not in coffee. No, I'm not them. What are your constraints? Embrace your actual reality regardless of what the conventional thinking is. I need to be a consumer company to be creative. Constrained projects help you answer that final question on the bridge. How can this expand? Because once you've built something defensible, you can then expand to something exceptional. You're on the right path. You just need to keep going. Show the results to your boss. Get more resources. Spend more time. For First Round, that meant original content. That meant community groups. That meant technology. And yes, that meant Howard Morgan, a guy who's like 75 years old, dressing up as a teen pop star. probably will look something different in this room. That's okay. That's probably a good thing. So if you want to be exceptional, if you want to do something big and better, think big, but start small. Ask yourself that question, what are my constraints? And embrace them. I want to close on this. I thought about Mr. Shred again the other day. It was at the anniversary of the day he died a few years ago. A while ago, he'd moved from Connecticut up to Wisconsin, where he lived out the remainder of his days. He said he liked the cheese, but loved the Green Bay Packers. And I thought I knew what he meant when he said that we'll get disillusioned, that we'll seek out some secret, and instead we should focus on our body of work. I thought I understood him. I thought he meant someday you'll do something great. You'll get to the other side of that leap, and you'll look back and feel proud about how far you came. But now I think I know the truth. The truth is, it's not about that one leap. It's about the next one, and the next one. Further and further, thinking for yourself more and more as more conventional thinking gets poured on you every single day. It's about your body of work. You see, to be exceptional, you have to be an exception from all that average noise. And the good news is every individual is an exception. But every day, thanks to the gurus and the cheats and the hacks and the tips, we're convinced that we're not, that we can't, or that we won't. But we already are. We just have to trust that. We have to use that. We have to apply that to our work. We have to stop obsessing over everybody else's right answers for us and start asking ourselves the right questions. What is my aspirational anchor? Where does my intent overlap with my hunger, my dissatisfaction for today? And how does that create a sort of context or filter over all that conventional thinking? And what is my first principle insight? Some firm footing I can use to stand with confidence on something I know to be true about my customer's reality, because that lets me build original thinking up from there, where my competitors would have no idea how I'm doing it. And what are my constraints? I should embrace them. I should use those to test that insight, because all the studies in the world show me that constraints yield better creativity. We should embrace them. And while we're doing that, we should ask, why me? Why us? Because everybody has access to the same information and the same technologies, but no one has access to us. We are our company's unfair advantage. What is it about us, about you, that we can use? And who believes in you, both internally as stakeholders and externally as a small number of people react passionately in a big way to what we're doing, not as final success, but as signal of success, as a sign that we're on the right path and have built something defensible. And then we can ask the final question, how can this expand from defensible to exceptional? Doing better work does not have to be a leap. Trusting your intuition does not require one swift motion. It's a series of smart, strategic steps, steps that we can all take because we find our answers from within. That is how you turn an unthinkable leap into a bridge across. That is how you can break from conventional thinking and do better work. That is how tomorrow you will run faster, stretch your arms farther, and one fine morning be exceptional. Trust your intuition. Thank you very much. Thank you.